Today I'm going to be speaking with Måns Vestin, who is a former technical director at DICE, and he worked on Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. So thanks for joining us today, Måns.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So the format for today's stream is going to be, we're going to have a quick Q&A, and actually just going to test that the chat's coming up on the stream here. There we go. So may need to adjust that a little bit, but it should come up pretty soon. So we're going to have an interview first, and then that'll be followed by question and answers. Towards at the end of the interview, we'll take some questions from the chat. And my hope is that this stream is really going to condense down what we talked about in Discord, because we've been talking on the Battlefield Discord group now for the last couple of months, and the bad thing about Discord is that it's not really good to archive conversations, because like you have to scroll forever through a bunch of like irrelevant stuff. So I thought an interview would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things we brought up in the Discord. So let's move on to some questions, if that's all right with you. So we're going to talk a lot about Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, but could you first give us a little bit of background on some of the other games you worked on at DICE, Måns?
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having me, and I'm glad that I stumbled upon your YouTube channel and the Discord group for Modern Combat veterans. I was glad to see that there were still some fans out there of this pretty old game.
Yeah, it's great. It's been great having you in, because there's been a lot of unanswered questions, and it's been good to have someone that actually was there when it was being created, that can give us some, shed a little bit of light on some of the things that we were guessing at before.
Yeah, sure. So I worked at DICE for 11 years, but I quit DICE for like 9 years ago. So I just want to point out that I'm in no way representing DICE or EA anymore.
Yeah.
But I still know a lot about the game, especially Modern Combat. And I worked at some other games. I did a pretty awful Shrek game before Modern Combat, and I worked on Medal of Honor, released 2010, and
Someone's saying,
for a short while on Battlefield 3.
sorry, man, someone's saying that you're muted in the stream.
Oh, okay.
Don't know why that would be.
Okay, we'll start from the beginning. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so happy that I stumbled upon your YouTube channel and the Discord group for Battlefield Modern Combat veterans. I was very happy to see that there were still some fans out there. I worked at DICE for 11 years, but I left DICE for like 9 years ago, so I'm not representing DICE or EA in any way now. But I know a lot about Modern Combat, and I worked on some other games as well. I worked on a kind of bad Shrek game on GameCube before Modern Combat, and afterwards I did, for example, Medal of Honor, released 2010, and I worked a couple of years on Battlefield 3 before I left DICE.
Yeah. And Mirror's Edge. Don't forget Mirror's Edge. Don't downplay that
Well,
one.
I did work with the Mirror's Edge team, but the game at that point was nowhere near the game they finally released. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to take any
Oh,
credit
okay,
for that.
okay. Yeah.
They changed all the game design and they changed the game engine after I left.
Yeah. And so you were a technical director on Modern Combat, but can you sort of describe what a technical director's role would be, or just to people who don't know much about the games industry, what your day-to-day work would be like?
So I was working mostly with the programmers and discussing with them how to build a game, how we should solve technical problems, and so on. I did a lot of programming myself as well, but I also had a lot of contact with the game designers and the artists to try to find ways to help them understand how they can use the technology and what they could and couldn't do, and them, for example, help the game designer to understand that this is what the engine can do. This is where you should go with your design, because then we can help you implement it. But this other idea you have, it's going to be really complex. It's not worth the effort.
Yeah.
So it was the overall technical responsibility.
Yeah. And how did the ball get rolling as such? Like, was Battlefield Modern Combat, was it the same team that worked on the PC version, or were they being worked on at the same time, or was it just two totally separate things?
It was actually two separate teams at the start. It was two separate offices as well. The PC game, Battlefield 1942, was developed in Stockholm. And then we had a team in Gothenburg that started working on the PlayStation 2 version, and we did that pretty much in parallel with the PC, the Battlefield 2 game.
So they were both being worked on at the same time?
Yeah, and the Battlefield 2 was built on the Battlefield 1942 code base, but that code base was not really suitable for the PS2. I mean, the PS2, this was the end of the PS2 life cycle, more or less. So a PS2 was far less powerful than a PC, than a gaming PC at that time.
Yeah.
So something slimmer. We had built some other console games before, so we started off with parts of those code bases, and we built a lot of new code as well for Modern Combat.
Yeah, so it was different engine to the PC version.
Yeah, it's a completely different engine. And I know many people think it's the renderware engine, but the renderware was actually only used for some of the AI in the single-player game. So it's nothing of a render multiplayer game. But at the point, EA wanted their renderware to become the big game engine that everyone would use. So they really wanted the logo in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I've got a question. I'll bring that up later on, because that was something I noticed, that everyone assumed it was renderware engine, but you said it was more of a like an earlier version of what was used for Bad Company and Battlefield 3.
Yeah, so when Bad Company started off, that was a bit before Modern Combat was released, and they had to pick
really?
as well. So they had to choose between starting off with a Battlefield 2 code base or the Modern Combat code base, and they picked Modern Combat because it was a console game.
Console,
yeah. More sense.
Yeah.
But they did rewrite a lot of stuff for the Bad Company game.
Yeah.
They rewrote the rendering, the audio, the physics, the animation. But there's also a lot of things that are common. The core gameplay functionality and the networking is pretty much the same in Modern Combat and in the Bad Company. And pretty much a lot of that code is probably still around in the Frostbite engine.
Yeah. Well, we'll actually touch on that later too. So what I'll do is I'll play some gameplay. Let's see. So we can illustrate what we're actually talking about, because there may be some people in the chat who don't remember what this game looks like because it was so long ago. We should probably clarify at this point that it's actually the PlayStation 2, and you worked on it from an online point of view. It wasn't the single player we're talking about here. We're talking about the online mode. Sorry, Måns, I've messed up here. I need to copy over your audio to the different scenes. Sorry, I moved from one scene to the other, and when I moved, it killed your audio, so that was my fault. Oh. I'm still getting used to the live streaming on OBS, so that was my mistake. So I'm gonna just very quickly pause this video, and then we're going to go to one of the images. So this is from Frederick the Islander. He posted this up in the Discord. So just something I kind of wanted to point out was this picture was showing the development time, because I always kind of think about Battlefield 2 Modern Combat as a game that came out in 2005, but in reality it was being worked on. I think there was about like at least a 3-year development period from what I can see there anyway.
Yes.
So
it
sorry,
it
go
was
ahead.
originally it was intended to be released 2004 and to be in development for 2 years. But when we got closer to the release, we more and more realized that a multiplayer only game on PS2 was not going to sell enough. So that was a brave bet that we made, because the PS2, when we started working on this, didn't have a network connection. You had to buy an adapter, and still we tried to build an online-only game for PlayStation.
Yeah.
But our publisher, Electronic Arts, kept asking us, "Oh, can't you add a single-player mode as well?" And we kept saying, "No, that's not a game. We have to have 1 more year for that." And finally, they actually said, "Okay, you get 1 more year." And then we started building the single player in Gothenburg, but pretty soon we realized that we didn't really have the manpower to do that. So the single player game was moved over to a studio in UK.
Yeah.
And they built that. And meanwhile, we had time to iterate on the multiplayer game for yet another year. And I think that's one of the main reasons this game is
so polished.
Both from an art and gameplay perspective.
Well, for me, it was like I was playing games at the time like GoldenEye, Time Splitters and Perfect Dark and things like that, and they were tiny little levels, and to play something that was online and so like the levels were so large. I remember I had friends over from university, and they were like, I showed them how just put the game on, let them see it, and they were really impressed with just how large the file or how large the maps were. So I won't pretend to know the technicalities, but I'm glad I've got a technical director here. So you mentioned in a message that Modern Combat was a client server based game, and at the time most other games were peer-to-peer. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how the game was handled on the server?
Yeah, sure. So when you do a multiplayer game or an online game, there are kind of 2 basic ways you can do it. Either you can have all the clients send like all the updates to all the other players. So I'm telling you where my soldier is, and you're telling me where your soldier is, and we can all render the same stuff. But that doesn't really scale good, because for each player I need to send 1 extra stream of data to a new player. So it scales bad, and you cannot have much more than like 16 players, especially at this time when we did this game. So to be able to go above that, we did a client server game where every client only sends its information to 1 point, the server, and then the server updates the world and decides where everyone is, and then it sends 1 stream to each player with information about everyone. And the drawback is that we had to host the game on this server that EA were running. So, but the benefit was that we could have one benefit was we could reduce the bandwidth usage to have more players, but also that we could move over some of the computations to the server side. So when you kill someone, for example, they fall down like a ragdoll. And that's like a physics simulation. It's quite expensive to do. And we're doing that only on the server and just sending the positions over to the client. So the client is just rendering things. It's a really stupid and thin client here that's not doing much of the logic. And the name tags, there are ray costs going on to determine if you are supposed to shove the name tag for another soldier, and ray costing is also an expensive operation on this console, so we moved that over to the server as well. A lot of things were moved to the server to be able to run this.
I suppose that's why you could never do any LAN mode, because the information isn't on your console as such. It's all on a dedicated server elsewhere.
Yeah, well, you could play this in LAN, but then you would have to run the server yourself
Yeah.
at the same local area network. That would work, but we never released the server, so you cannot really do that.
Yeah. And is that how most modern games would work now? They would all be just going to the server. Is that how pretty much all get
N-
maybe?
No, I don't think so because it's still it's more complex to build a game like this.
Right.
Um, Much more complex, I would say.
Okay.
And it's more complex from a hosting perspective and cost perspective. It costs a lot to run these servers. The bandwidth is a cost that EA had to pay for example.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, most games which just have some simple online mode are running peer to peer nowadays. But there are combinations as well. If you look at Halo 2, for example, which was released in the same era. They had the same technology as Modern Combat, but they were actually hosting the server at one of the clients. So it was like the same topology and network traffic, but one of the clients were selected to run the server. And they could do that because they were running on Xbox, which is much more powerful, but they still couldn't have the same amount of players and vehicles as we did, even
Yeah.
if it was a much more powerful client, because they had to fit the server into one of the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly was one of the biggest. 12 versus 12. Massive maps, and I mean, the other games at the time, like Call of Duty and things like that, were far smaller. I mean, I went from some Modern Combat was my first online game, and I went from it to play Call of Duty, and I used to feel so claustrophobic in the Call of Duty maps because you could literally throw a grenade from one side to the other. Um, but also, I noticed I feel like Modern Combat set a trend in that it was modern. Like most shooting games at the time were like the Call of Duty ones were all set in like a world war, like World War One or two. Was
Yeah.
there like a feeling of making the game more modern? Like, was there other competition at the time that was like that, or did you feel like you were setting a trend by making it a modern game?
Um,
Because I think you
I don't
said,
really remember what other games were doing. Battlefield 2 was also a modern game. We were a bit back and forth about that when we started out the development, but EA really wanted it to be a modern game, but it wasn't completely, it wasn't an easy decision because, I mean, it can be a bit sensitive to make a game about a war which is recent in time. So I
yeah,
think that was the reason that most other games were like Second World War because
yeah.
it's not as sensitive.
Well, the reason I ask is
And I
because
know that,
shortly after Modern Combat came out, then Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out, and I always kind of felt like
yeah,
it was almost copying Battlefield in a way. It was copying the success of Battlefield.
yeah,
I think you actually said in the Discord at
uh,
one point you had considered the name Battlefield 2 Modern Warfare.
yeah. I mean, there are still there. We did some trailers and the commercial material where we still had that name. So it was called Battlefield Modern Warfare at the start, but then we changed it for some reason. But
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with the Call of Duty games. And I think it was more or less random that they did the same. I mean, it's like that with trends.
yeah,
People pick up the same trend at the same time.
yeah,
It's hard to copy something like that from a game, given that it takes like 2 to 3 years to develop it.
yeah. Um, I always felt like just while we're on Call of Duty, just before we move off that, I was always feeling like in Call of Duty, like you would get lots of rewards, things like airstrikes. You could call in helicopters. You could get like UAVs if you like get certain kill streaks, and it's almost like and you unlock better weapons, and it's like you're rewarded for being a good player. But what I find with Modern Combat and other Battlefield games is that it's a fairly even playing field. Like everyone has the same kit, and on both
Yeah.
teams you have relatively the same, same weapons and same vehicles. Do you remember at the time there being a big push for there being like a balance to the game?
Um, I mean, these were decisions we mainly did within the team. We wanted it to be balanced, so we built it like this on purpose. I remember there was a big push for like unlocks later on, because that became a big thing.
Yeah.
And I know that some other more recent Battlefield games had more of the unlocks than we did.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was just something people started asking for.
Yeah.
But I think there were two sides of this thing, that we wanted the game to be balanced, but also that the unlock thing wasn't a big thing back then.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to just start talking about the single player a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the single player was it was interesting to me to learn that it's a totally different game to the online mode. Like literally, I think you said in the Discord it's like two different engines and made by two different people.
No, they actually started off with a copy of the online game.
Okay.
But they had to change it a lot, because I mean they had one PC server with all the logic, and then they have a PlayStation 2 client with no logic, just the rendering. So it was not trivial for them, but it was based on the same code. But then they also replaced some stuff. They replaced the sound engine and the particle lining for some reason, mostly because they were used to using their own tools and technologies and wanted to keep let their artists use the particle editor they were used to and so on. So there were some things that were...
Yeah, I'd assume. Well, I've seen that they reused a lot of the assets, like the vehicles and kits and stuff.
Yeah,
but it always felt very different. Like the movement and gameplay just felt entirely different. Like a little more sluggish offline. So and what was that relationship like with the team creating the single player game? Did you?
I mean, we did have a lot of contact with that team, but also we were separate teams building two separate games, more or less.
Yeah.
And we tried to keep things in sync, but we didn't always succeed, and there was also sometimes we just wanted things to feel different, and we just did it differently. Because we were different teams. But it's two different executables, two games on one disk. And even if there's sometimes are shared textures or buildings that look the same, they're actually duplicated on the disk.
Yeah, we found some buildings in the single player that were textured based on the multiplayer level. So like there's in this level here, Backstab, there's like a ramp that goes down, but the because in the single player that ramp's no longer there, the texture's all messed up because it looks like there should be a ramp there, but it's just gone. So there's some little things like that.
I know what you mean.
But no, I just wanted to clarify that they're essentially separate games. I mean, for me, a lot of my friends, you said that Battlefield was designed to be a multiplayer game, and a lot of my friends bought it for the multiplayer, and that's all they ever played. And I was actually surprised to see there are like lots and lots of fans of the single player too. But and most of my friends never even played the single player. They just bought it for the online mode because they knew it was really good. So we should move on to the server shutting down. This is kind of the elephant in the room, I guess. The game isn't playable anymore, if you hadn't noticed. If you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about your efforts in trying to bring the game back online and your correspondence with DICE? If you could even touch on that briefly.
So this happened really recently when I got in contact with you on the Discord group, and I realized that there were actually people who missed this game. So I reached out to some of my old colleagues at DICE and asked them if they could consider releasing the game server. I know there a lot of people have been asking them before, but I thought it was worth a try. And I've been in contact with the creative director and the head of technology, and I know they're really considering it, but I think there are
legal loopholes or challenges.
There might be legal loopholes. I mean, this is a Sony PlayStation game, and Sony is really picky about what you release on their platforms. And if we gave out the server, people would be able to change the game modes and kick and ban players as they will and so on. And someone might have the game and play it and think it is what it says on the box, and it's not going to be that anymore because someone altered the server. So that could be a problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
On the other hand, DICE has released the server to a lot of the PC games, so you could also think that they might decide to do it.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, because PC games is maybe a bit different.
Yeah.
They probably have to consult they probably have to consult the legal teams and stuff like that. I mean, I also wonder, would EA in some ways possibly put a roadblock in place for something like that? You know, that could be an issue also, or? I
mean, DICE is an EA studio, so I don't think you really can make a difference between EA and DICE like that.
Right, okay. There was something I was wondering about. I hadn't even heard of this until someone did post about this in the Discord, but this website called Multiplay, what do you remember of this? So like and some people were also mentioning that they've seen a bunch of Multiplay servers. So this was a website that you could actually go on and rent a server from, but was that implemented, or was that something that we were going to implement, or what way did that work?
It was implemented. I actually did support for that for Multiplay. So what happened was that EA started to feel like this is expensive to host. We need to move it to somewhere else. And Multiplay did host a lot of other games. They hosted Battlefield for the PC games as well, and supported the renting of servers.
I might have a close-up.
And this was.
So there's the option to rent, like Battlefield 1942, Battlefield 2,
exactly.
2142, Battlefield 3. So they seem to have lots of servers. I didn't even know this service existed back then.
So the idea was that they would take on running the service, and instead of us paying them for it, we gave them the possibility to rent out servers. And if you rented the server, you would pay to Multiplay and not to EA. And then you would get control over some settings on the server that you could control, like setting up the map rotations and reserving it for your own clan or your own friends, setting up some of the rules in the server.
But people were doing it at the time, so there was some multiplayer servers?
There were a lot of multiplayer servers because they were hosting lots of servers because they were taking over the hosting from EA. But I don't think the rental thing never took. Took off really. People never really knew about it because we didn't have any good channels to reach out to the console players.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of people. I mean, looking at those prices, people would probably pay $40 individually just to play this game again. There's a lot of diehard fans would love to do that. Yeah. But did that mean that did that bypass the GameSpy servers like completely by doing multiplayer? No.
No, GameSpy was always hosting the stats and the matchmaking for the game.
Yeah. Your login as well.
Yeah, the accounts, and the stats and the matchmaking was hosted by GameSpy for the PlayStation 2, and the GameSpy kept running that even if Multiplay was running the game servers.
Yeah.
So that were two separate things.
Okay, so what you're saying is if like Multiplay still provided this service, it wouldn't work because it kind of needs it would need GameSpy to host their end of it, if you like.
Yeah, so you would still need to run it through OpenSpy or some other GameSpy simulation. But I know there are GameSpy simulations out there that you could use, and the same thing goes for DNAS, the Sony piracy software, and that needs to be bypassed as well because they brought down their servers.
Yeah.
So you need to simulate GameSpy, simulate the DNAS, and you need a real game server. And you cannot simulate the game server because it has too much of the logic in it.
Yeah.
I know that you can do that for some other games because some games just use the server to pass on packets from clients to other clients, but we didn't do that. We sent the gamepad input to the server, and then the server doesn't forward the input to other players. It forwards the actual position of the vehicles and soldiers.
Right.
So you need all that logic on the server side, and that's not something you could replicate just by sniffing packets or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go on to renderware and we'll talk a little bit more about the server. But before you joined, that's what I was saying, like at the start of this video, whenever I had that audio problem, before you joined, there was a lot of guesswork, and we knew that the assets were on the disk, and we knew that the maps, I think, are on the disk, but we weren't really sure what was on the server. But it was good to get some clarity on that, really. So I have a screenshot here from the Discord where you say, because I mean, people have suggested in the past that we try and download this renderware studio, because like we said at the start, everyone assumes it's just the renderware engine and we can just like use it to somehow pry open the game's files and get the game running again. But you point out here that renderware was only used for bot pathfinding, and then I assume that's just a single player thing because there's no bots in the online mode.
Yeah.
Okay. And the physics, so that's just what you've pretty much described and outlaid here, that like the logic is all on the server. So the logic isn't on the disk as such. The disk really just has the assets, and then it needs the server to tell the disk how to work, essentially.
Yeah, so the PlayStation game disk has the rendering assets more or less, and the audio assets and so on, but there are a lot of other like gameplay assets that's only on the server together with the server files.
Yeah, this is what we tried to download here, this software that we thought we would potentially be able to open some of the files, but we now know why that never worked, because it's not the renderware engine really. It's like I think you said it was yeah. I think you said it's a precursor to the Frostbite engine really. So it's kind of, yeah. I guess it just didn't have the Frostbite name at that time.
Yeah, well, it depends on what part of the game you look at. The first time we used the Frostbite name was for the Bad Company game, and Bad Company started off with a Modern Combat code base, but they redid the rendering, the audio, the physics, the AI, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But the networking and gameplay logic is pretty much the same in Bad Company as in Modern Combat.
So one of the things we did find whenever we were digging around in the game's files, we were able to open up some things, and actually surprisingly we managed to track down like an old like a demo for the game, like an online demo.
Yeah.
And we were able to find a bunch of height maps and stuff like that, but we also found like a level list. I know I talked to about this before. There's a few interesting things that stood out to me on this. So I mean, obviously there's a bunch of things in here. There's like there's a level called like all vehicles. There's one called image viewer and things like that. So they're obviously all development rooms. But the first thing that kind of stood out to me whenever I first seen this was one of the levels is called Wake. So do you remember, was that Wake Island, was that actually being developed or?
Yes, so that was Wake Island, and we later adjusted Wake Island to fit our level size and vehicles better, and it turned out to be the island level called Hidden, which was part of 360 DLC.
Yes. So was it at a time, was it going to be literally just Wake Island from 1942 or?
Yeah, I mean, the first idea was that we would just do Wake, and then we kept adjusting it, and it turned out to be not as similar to Wake, so we used another name for it.
Yeah, because I mean, I was actually thinking about this because there was only helicopters in the game. There was no like jets or planes or anything, so it might have felt a little bit strange. So I can see how it was adapted
exactly.
to become hidden essentially.
Yeah. I think the lack of the jet planes was the main reason for the big change in the design of that level.
Yeah, and then there was one. I think there was one called you mentioned. I think it was like Frostbite. Was one of the DLC maps, but I think initially the code name for it, or like the original name, was like Winterland or something like that. I think that was what it was called, but it changed to Frostbite, and then
Winter something.
Winter Island or Winterland or something, I think maybe.
Yeah, I think it was a level called Winterland that turned out to be Frostbite, and then I'm pretty sure that Wilderness was the third DLC level, and that changed name to whatever the third name is.
The third, so there was there was Full Frontal, Hidden, and then Frostbite. So Full Frontal was actually the third, but we did find, that was what I was just about to bring up, was Wilderness was another one that I had never heard of before, but the
what I think is that the Full Frontal you see on this list is
number 5,
that's the level we cut out of the game because it wasn't good enough. And the Wilderness you see on this list eventually morphed into the level that's in the DLC, and that's called Full Frontal on the DLC. So we used that name for the Wilderness level, but I think the design changed a lot. So if you look at the height map for Wilderness in the demo, it would be quite
different. So we did visualize that. So the height map came in something like this. To me, it always felt more of like a jungle kind of like there's a level called like Honor, and then always sort of looked a little bit like that. So so you think it was it just level that just kind of got scrapped in the end?
Yeah, if this is the Wilderness height map, I think this is what's called Full Frontal in the DLC.
Right.
But I'm not sure if it's similar to Full Frontal anymore. I mean, it could have changed, just like Wake changed into Hidden. Because this demo was long before the DLC.
Yeah.
Like a year before.
Yeah. I just have one more question about the like hacking the files and stuff. So we've hit a bit of a brick wall when it comes to trying to access some of the files, and we the files that we're getting stuck on is called like ARC files, like .arc. Do you remember anything about like generating those files at the time? Like, were they just we believe that's where all the assets are, but do you think it's like those are just encrypted to stop people like us from trying to steal assets, or?
I don't remember if there's any encryption. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure there is compression going on.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure about that. I would guess that the archives are just zip files of concatenated.
Yeah, it's maybe just a thing that only.
But I know that all the file formats in the multiplayer game are proprietary format that we just made up.
Oh, okay.
So if you manage to open something with some external tool, it's just luck.
Yeah, so you would kind of need the original engine to properly open it or display it or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some fun stuff here. We're going to take a look. I know we'll possibly come back to the server shutting down and the question and answer, because I know that's the burning issue really for a lot of fans, but I just wanted to show some little fun things about the game that I thought you could comment on, or I just thought we could look at it just because it was fun to do. So some of them are like glitches that are in the game, but I think some of them are actually intentionally put in the game. So let's see. Start with a fun one. We're going to go actually do Russian border. So this is just like a something that you could do in the game, and I assume this was intentional by the level designer. So just there was also little places where you could like jump up onto walls and get to like little hidden parts and stuff. So it's not really a glitch, more of a like an Easter egg, I guess. But there's this little cool way of getting up onto this this roof. Like, do you remember at the time, like, there being plans to put these little things in, or do you think this was like maybe the original creator of the map just put these little things in just for people to find, or?
I don't remember exactly. I mean, I would guess that this is intentional.
Yeah, because the
artists thought that you could do this and intentionally did it like this.
Because the way the barrels
But also, there are a lot of things, places where you can like go inside crates and stuff where you're not really supposed to be.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that later. But I'm pretty sure that was intentional because like the boxes were placed perfectly to get up onto it and stuff. But that it was never really, it was just kind of a fun thing to do, just like whenever you were bored, but it never really got used in actual gameplay because it was just like trying to get this working. I make it look easy here but this is like my 10th try, because it's like you can just like slide off this little wall, so it's not like perfect. So let me move on to another one. Just let's go to a bit of a fan favorite here, Missile Crisis. I know a lot of people love this level, but it kind of always stood out to me, this level, like, because it was almost like a more of an objective based game, where like
it's really different from the other levels.
Yeah, because you can go and press this button to open the gate. Now I know the Nest had like a button where you could like open and shut. You could open and shut a gate as well on it. So it's a shame that this level wasn't actually played more. Everyone just seemed to stick to the same maps over and over again. But it definitely feels a lot different to any of the other levels.
I really liked Missile Crisis because of this. It was like 2 parts in the game. First you had to fight over the gate, and then it changed completely once you got through.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace from just playing the same old, you have 2 flags either side and you have to make your way to the middle. And this one, like, one team essentially controlled the most of the map, and you had to fight your way in. And it was really fun to try and do that. I wish more people played it, really, because I think these maps were called like incursion maps or something, where so one team would always have a spawn, but if you took back all of the flags from the level, then no one else could spawn.
Let
me see.
So there were like 3 different kinds of conquest maps. I don't really remember the name. There were assault maps, incursion maps, and something more.
Yeah, the assault, I think, was...
You could actually pick server rotations with only maps from one of these categories. Yeah.
So this is a little... I don't know if this was intentional. I don't know if you've seen that there, but I was able to drive my tank up through, like, essentially the mountain. And what it allows you to do is, like, drive around the back to actually get to, like, flag 6. And I think I don't this may not have been intentional at all, but basically what it allowed you to do was, if you were being pinned on flag 2 and then the team was like really good at defending, a little sneaky thing you could do would be like to drive your tank along the back of this mountain. So I'll just I'll show you that again if this allows me to go back. So there just seemed to be like a perfect sweet spot on the mountain where if you like drove fast enough, you could just like drive the whole way up the mountain, and it allows you to sneak behind the map essentially, because when you think about it, this actually gets you back to flag 6, and no one really will spawn on this flag. So what it allows you to do is take this flag and then kind of attack the enemy team from both sides, really. So this just allows you to go and get this flag.
I don't remember if I ever did that, but I don't think so.
It wasn't that well known, to be honest. And I think it was probably only discovered towards the end of the game being released. But then the other thing is, Missile Crisis wasn't played enough really for things like this to be used, because it just was rarely played. I think I don't know, like friends of mine used to just like load up the maps that weren't played and just like run around them and wait for people to join, but no one would join, so we would just end up doing silly stuff like this. There was one other one on Missile Crisis where you could actually, again, I think, I don't want to say it was intentional, but like if you were being pinned back and you only had one more flag and you couldn't get in this warehouse door, there was actually a way to kind of walk up the mountain beside it. Like there was certain geometry that you could actually just essentially walk on.
I remember that we were tweaking the physics a lot.
Yeah.
To be able to cut out kind of forecast like that.
Yeah.
And we did some very special materials with slippery slopes and so on to be able to like make areas not accessible without having to have some kind of artificial walls. And I guess this opened up for some glitches after all.
I suppose there's always going to be little glitches like this found because you can't really, until people are actually playing it, you can't really test all of these things out. Those are just some little fun things. So there was actually, as you I'm sure know, there was lots of wall glitches, and people they used to be the bane of, but like they used to trigger me so badly. I used to hate people that would glitch inside a wall and then you couldn't kill them. Because we talked earlier about how the logic was on the server. So the fact that the geometry was on the disk, does that mean that certain wall glitches and things like that couldn't be patched because essentially they were kind of sort of already on a disk, so you couldn't really do anything to fix that piece of geometry that allows you to
the other way around. I mean, you could perfectly well patch geometry on the server side.
Oh, okay. Because
the server would decide when you could go and not go.
Yeah.
So it would have been possible just to change that on the server. And we did one server change to mitigate the wall glitches. I'm trying to remember exactly what we did, but we were looking at two different things. One was that because when we built the game, we assumed that all polygons or all surfaces had one direction, which was like the outside of a box.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to be inside.
Yeah.
Which meant that you could actually shoot out through stuff.
Yes.
But not in through stuff.
And the texture
it didn't really matter if you could. Yeah, because it wouldn't matter if you could shoot out or not, because you weren't supposed to be inside. And we did experiment with changing that on the server, so you wouldn't be able to shoot out of the container if you managed to get into it. I'm not sure if we did that change or not, but we did make a similar change to the name tags, so you wouldn't be able to see enemy name tags through walls if you were inside walls. That change we did, and it was much harder to use those glitches because you couldn't see where your enemies were anymore.
I know the 360. Well, actually, I think even some of the early there was some of the early wall glitches were patched on Bridge Too Far, because I remember you could actually glitch into the bridge. So I remember there was some of those were fixed. Mm-hmm. But I guess there were just some of them got through in the end. But in this example here, what's happened is this was actually a little video from a clan match we did, and both teams have the flag, and what's happened is the enemy team has went and hid inside a glitch, inside one of the wall glitches. So I'll show you. This is me going around to try and like get the guy out of the glitch, basically. But this wall, for some reason, you could just like clip into this wall, and then I can kill him. But I think actually, I wonder. One of the fixes. I'm pissed off at that guy, so I'm shooting his dead body. This is actually a good example of. Sorry, hold on a minute. You can see there that one of the fixes that is to actually have the texture display on the inside face as well, so that's like you can't really shoot out anymore. You can't see anyone to shoot them. So I think that may have been one of the patches that were done on the wall glitches. We'll get back to one other patch that was fixed as well, but there was one other thing we talked about that you didn't know that was actually a part of the game, but it was the quick snipe glitch. Did you heard about that in the Discord group? Essentially, what
Sorry,
it
you
was.
were breaking up a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm lagging a little bit. I was maybe switching between those videos. So, the other glitch that was in the game was called the quick snipe glitch. Did you? I think we talked about that in the Discord group.
Yeah, that you could reload the sniper rifle by switching to the gun.
Yeah. So
Or the pistol.
So
Yeah.
what you could do is basically switch to another item, and then what it did is it basically cut out the animation for the reload, so it allowed you to like fire really quickly.
Yeah.
And
I think that we were not aware of this when we released the game, but when we found out, we thought it was fine because it's a skill shot.
yeah, see, it was actually fixed on the PlayStation 2 version, so it was.
Oh,
And I think it may have actually been, it could even have been incidentally fixed, but essentially it got to the point where like everyone was just quick sniping. Like that's how, that's like if you were going to be a sniper, like, and you didn't quick snipe, you were just like, you were no longer competitive, if you like, because someone else had like a huge advantage over you. And I think people just kind of got used to like playing it that way.
yeah.
But then, like I said, in the PlayStation 2, it was actually fixed. And it might,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it might surprise you to know this, but the Battlefield 2 Modern Combat wasn't the only one that had this quick snipe glitch. It was Bad Company 1 had it, 1943 had it, and for a time Battlefield 3 had it as well. But I'm thinking that might be because of the leftover code from Modern Combat. Maybe it kind of made its way into the game or something.
Yeah, that could have been the same code still running.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll flip on to some, like, this will give us an opportunity to just talk about some of the other Battlefield games as well. So I always the other thing, like, I've got a little video here is Metal Gear Solid, because I always seen the quick snipe glitch as kind of like Metal Gear Solid had a quick reload, so like you're able to like quickly switch between your weapons, and then again that cut out the reloading animation. So if you see the reload there, it's like a lot slower. But there was kind of like a skill based thing, where if like you were really quick at switching between your weapons, it allowed you to reload very quickly. So I was kind of seeing it as like there was a little bit of skill in it, but obviously it wasn't intended. But and also Gears of War, I don't know if you played that game, but there was like a reloading animation thing in it where like if you fired a shot and then very quickly hit reload, I missed it on that one, but it was like same kind of idea where like it gave you a little bit of a reward if you were quick enough with the reload. Really, you get like an extra couple of seconds shot. That's kind of how I always felt with the quick sniping. So I'll show you some Bad Company 1 footage. I know you didn't personally work on Bad Company 1, and this is like really old footage. Like this is my first ever capture card I got was for Battlefield Bad Company 1, and I guess it was because I enjoyed Modern Combat so much, and I missed playing it, and I kind of always wanted to have footage of it and stuff, so I decided to buy a capture card for Bad Company. And so this is like some really old footage, but it was demonstrating how you could actually do this same quick snipe glitch, where like you basically take your shot, switch to another weapon, and then switch again, and it's like almost rapid fire, or like you could fire essentially as quick as a pistol, you know.
Yeah, so maybe the explanation is what I was telling you before, that Bad Company took the Modern Combat game engine and started off from that before Modern Combat was released.
Yeah.
So if we did any late changes here or post-release changes, they wouldn't go into the Bad Company code base by default.
Yeah. And you said the devs that worked on Bad Company were essentially the devs that worked on Battlefield 2 on the PC?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Just while that's playing in the background, and again, I appreciate you don't know all of the decisions that were made for Bad Company, but you may have seen there this. Sorry, I just have to click on this to bring that back a little bit. the chopper you see there gets destroyed, and then the guy just kind of spins around and he just dies because the really strange decision was made that the parachutes weren't actually included in Bad Company. You don't know why the decision was behind that, or why they didn't include parachutes.
What was not included in Bad Company?
The parachute, so the ability to like just jump off a building and just like glide down.
Yeah, I have no idea about that actually. Sorry.
Yeah, it's because I really enjoyed that in Modern Combat, but it was always a strange decision to me to see it being removed. And I'll kick myself if I don't ask, but do you know why the clan option wasn't included in Bad Company, or why clan options were never included in any of the later Battlefield games?
That's a good question, and possibly a long answer. I think that when we started building Modern Combat, the console online games wasn't really big, and we didn't really know what to build and so on. So we tried to build a game we wanted to play, and we knew that the console public or the console players were not really the same as the PC players. And PC gaming was really big in Sweden, while console gaming was really small. So most people had to dice at the time and thought that it would be impossible and like a bad idea to do Battlefield on console, because they didn't really think you could play first-person shooters on console at all without mouse and keyboard. So we knew that we were like aiming for like people sitting in their couch, like casual gamers more than hardcore gamers, but we still wanted to bring in some of the more hardcore stuff. And I think that's where the clan option came in, that we wanted this to be like a competitive game as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that we still have the fans like in the veteran Discord channel still, that because we did this slightly competitive game and not as casual as other console games at the time. But I also think that that's one of the reasons maybe that Modern Combat wasn't the biggest commercial success. If you look at Bad Company, they focused more on the single player game and more on like a fun and casual game, less competitive game.
Right.
And it sold a lot more.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good idea to not spend time on clan games and instead spend time on the single player story, for example.
In terms of commercially?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you're probably right in that maybe like only 80% of people just played the game and only 20% played clan matches, but to those 20%, like it was such a good experience. Like I got to the point where because I was in one of the top clans in it, and like we played clan matches every day, and it got to the point where it was like public games had no meaning anymore, because like no one played together as a team and no one played to win. In a public game, everyone's just messing about doing their own thing, but the clan matches and the competitive element of it was like what made me keep coming back to it and playing it over and over again. Like there was a real rush to play another clan and to have this like rivalry with other clans and see the leaderboards and see who's on top and things like that. And I bought Bad Company, and like I didn't even question the fact that like it wouldn't have a clan option. I just assumed that it was going to have the clan option, and we were all talking like, yeah, let's bring the clan over and all these, and we're going to play all these clan matches and stuff. And then to not have it in Bad Company and then to never see it ever again was just such a strange thing for me, because it was like really one of the best things about the game, to play at such a competitive I don't know, like public games just don't have the same rush really that a clan match had, so it was always strange to me that it was never really back in the series. I guess it was never really in any of them anymore. Okay, so let's move on to another Battlefield game. Again, you weren't involved, but this is a Battlefield 1943. Again, I'm just showing off some of the quick sniping in it, so it kind of prevailed this little glitch. But I thought this was a really fun game for what it was. Like, there was only 3 maps, but I really enjoyed playing this, and I know a lot of people. I think there was like a PC version planned, but it never actually came out. And a lot, because I used to make videos about it and stuff, and just like put up on my channel, and people would always ask, when is this coming out for PC? You don't know anything about why that didn't translate over to PC, or would you have any insight to that at all? Or
I thought that 1943 was released on PC, but
yeah, it didn't ever make it over.
So from what I recall, the thing was that, I mean, it seemed easy to port an Xbox 360 game over to PC, but the problem was that the graphics API, the DirectX API on the Xbox, was pretty similar to DirectX 10, which was like the new API, only available on some graphics card. And most graphics cards still only supported DirectX 9. And backporting to the older API would have been expensive. So I think there was an idea to do a DirectX 10 only PC version, but maybe it was just a too small audience to be worth the trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really popular when it first launched. Like, I remember when it first came out, there wasn't enough servers for people to even play, because like I think probably like EA and DICE underestimated how popular it would be, because it was on console. Because I remember the first day it came out, like I actually ended up being like one of the top people on the leaderboards in the first day, because basically I joined a match and never left. And what happened was the game was so popular that if you actually left the room, you couldn't get back in, because like people were just like waiting in line to get into the room. So it was a super,
never left.
Yeah, I got it day one, and I mean, if you want to be top on the leaderboard, it's basically just play the game to death. And I did for the first like 12 hours, but then like I had to go to bed, and then I never like got any more on the leaderboards. But essentially what happened was I just joined a room and stayed in it, and people were messaging me like, how did you get into that room? I can't join. So then I realized that if I left, then I would never get back in. So it was like super popular.
Yeah, that's also one of the drawbacks of the client server architecture, that you have to guess how many players there are going to be.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for all those players, and then if there are few, you still have to pay for all those servers.
Yeah.
And in many cases, I mean, people play a lot at the beginning, and then they start dropping off, and you have all those servers costing money still.
Yeah, so
it's a bit tricky.
I genuinely think that it was just they didn't anticipate it being as popular as it was, you know, because there was like this I think there was like, if there was so many kills, they were going to unlock a new mode, the air superiority mode, and they were like, if we unlock like 100,000 kills or something, or you know, the game's played that much, we'll unlock this mode. But that was like reached within the first couple of days of the game being out, because you know, it was just so popular. But yeah, it's a shame that it didn't actually get a PC port. But the ironic thing is, this game is actually still online and still playable. You can just play it on your Xbox One. I think Bad Company is the same, but it's just Modern Combat's the only one that's not. So we'll go to a game that'll be a bit more familiar to you, which is Battlefield 3. This is the beta, and when I first got the beta, like the first thing I did was just like test if the quick snipe glitch was still there, and as you see, it was still there. But I was amazed that after all of these years, it kind of...
That's a bit embarrassing, I have to say.
What'd you say?
That's a bit embarrassing.
Well, you'll be glad to know that it was patched out of the beta. I assume probably it must have been picked up in the beta. Like, I assume there was better safeguards in place to like read player data and things like that and see like, oh, this guy seems to be shooting his sniper rifle very quickly.
That was the reason we ran this kind of betas, to find that kind of issue.
So that was picked up straight away, because then I noticed whenever I played the full game, then you couldn't actually do quick sniping anymore. So yeah, let's see. I think we could probably just jump on to one other thing, which was actually patched out of the game, but it wasn't patched out of the 360 version, which was server crashing. Do you remember this glitch? I think you may have actually said that you did you do something in the way of patching this one?
Yeah. So this is, I guess you're talking about this thing you could do where you could get the whole server to crash.
Yeah. So this is footage of a guy actually doing it. I'll try and get it here somewhere. So yeah, you picked up.
What should happen first?
So that I start team killing him because he's like trying to drop the server. But basically what you do was like you picked up a kit and then shot and then dropped the kit and then picked up, and you just kept doing that over and over again. There he's doing it in the preview. And what this would do was I guess it just was too much information for the server and it just overloaded it, and then the whole room crashed out.
No, not really.
No.
So what happens here is that when you shoot something in this game, you look at the delayed version of the soldier, because when I am moving, I see myself in my own timeline, but you're seeing me in a delayed timeline because I have to send all my information through the server and over to you. But we wanted to look as if I aim at someone and shoot, I'm going to hit. So what the server had to do to get correct hit detection was that each time it had to trace a bullet through the world, it had to rewind every moving position in the world back to the time when you fired the gun.
Yeah.
So the server was like rewinding the time all the time. And what happens here is that when you change your soldier kit and then shoot, the server will rewind slightly in time to the time like before you change kit.
Right.
And you will hit yourself, and then the server will check, are you hitting yourself? Because we didn't want you to be able to inflict damage on yourself if there was like a glitch in your mesh or something and you happen to shoot yourself.
Right.
And then it checks if the player attached to that soldier is you. But since you just left that soldier because you changed kit, your player reference was not valid anymore.
Right.
So the server would look back in time and find the soldier with an invalid player and try to reference that memory and crash.
Yeah. Do you remember how you patched it? Because I think I don't know how you technically patched it, but I know the fix in game was basically that in the PlayStation 2, when you picked up a new kit, it reloaded, so it like didn't give you the opportunity to like just keep shooting over and over again.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I remember doing testing out a couple of different approaches.
Yeah.
The first time I found this glitch, I did the fix where the server would spell out you as a cheater in the text message and kick you and remove 100 points from your score.
Right.
But we didn't really want to release it like that. We just wanted to avoid it instead.
Yeah.
So I guess we ended up with the reload, triggering a reload that would make it impossible to fire so soon after the kit switch.
Well, I think that patching in that kind of reload may have inadvertently fixed the quick snipe glitch, because whenever you
or we fixed the quick snipe glitch at the same time, then maybe
could have been. So on the PlayStation 2, what happens is you switch to like a different item, and then when you switch back you get this little reloading bar, which wasn't present in like the Xbox version. So so it was fixed so that when you played the PlayStation 2, there was no quick sniping, so it was it was quite good. There was also the option to vote to kick people, and you see in this footage like people are trying to kick this guy out, but unfortunately, you need the numbers on your side really to get out. But it was a good you could. There's a lot of options. There's a lot more options in Modern Combat than there was in modern games. I find like there's a lot. You get a lot less customized or abilities. I think in modern games it's kind of dumbed down a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't let you do certain things.
And that's also partly because we got this extra year, and we could spend that on building all those extra features like climb games and kick features and whatnot.
Okay, well look, I think if it's okay with you, we could move on to questions and answers. If you feel like you have enough time, we haven't gone over too much, and I know we've talked for quite a while.
I'm fine. Let's go on with the questions.
All right. Well, if there's anyone else in the chat that has any questions for Måns, then feel free to ask them. We're here for there might be a little bit of a delay on the questions, but let me just pull the chat over and just double check there's nothing been asked on up a little bit. So there's a question from Noah. Have you ever thought of adding planes to Modern Combat?
Yeah, we were discussing planes, and the reason we didn't want them there was because we wanted to build a more fast-paced game than Battlefield 1942. 1942 was a huge game. I mean, the levels were 4 by 4 kilometers, and we had 1 by 1 in Modern Combat. And you could spend like 10 minutes walking and before you found the action. We didn't want that. We wanted you to be able to run to the action pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that made it hard to fit jet planes into those levels.
Yeah.
And then we decided that, for this game, it makes more sense with helicopters than jet planes. They would just swoop by.
Yeah. I understand that, because by the time you take off, you're already sort of halfway through the map. I think there was a good size. It was a good size. Like, it wasn't too big that you would ever feel like you would get lost or you'd be out of the action. But it was big enough to be impressive, and especially if you had like vehicles and stuff. So, okay, good question. Did you ever consider keyboard and mouse support for Modern Combat?
I don't remember that being a thing we discussed. I don't think that was big on the consoles back then.
Yeah.
And I think we might have been worried about the balance.
Yeah, giving an unfair advantage to people with a mouse.
Yeah.
So, Twin Swag, you've got a question there. The decision to release the 3 maps on the Xbox, were those maps already developed? And didn't make the original cut, or were they worked on after the release?
They were developed together with the game, and we were planning to release them as downloadable content from the start. And the reason for that was that game publishers had a lot of problem with second-hand game sales, like GameStop sold second-hand games, and we didn't make any money on those, of course. It was like just as bad as piracy for us.
Right.
And to be able to fight that, EA had this idea that every game should have $10 worth of downloadable content that you would only get if you were the first one to buy the game. So if you bought the original game, you get the code in the box, and you could download some stuff. And that would be stuff worth like $10, and then people would be more inclined to buy the original game.
Yeah.
And you could also actually buy those levels if you had a second-hand copy, so we could get some money from those people as well.
I remember that for like some of the Bad Company, I think, games, but I'm actually thinking the Modern Combat, the maps may have been free, but maybe I could be misremembering that. We've got a question there. Is it true the Chinese Special Forces character is a woman?
Yes, if you look closely at the special op with
Balaclava.
You can see that she's actually wearing an eyeliner. So, and she's a bit smaller as well.
Yeah, I always liked the SMG class. I always felt like a little bit faster, even though like it was probably very minutely, but it always felt like, I remember if you carried a knife and you walked slightly faster as well. So there were very, very subtle differences in the different kits, but they were almost unnoticeable.
Actually, we actually talked to EA about making a woman character, and they said no. So that's the reason why it's so subtle.
Oh, right, okay.
We didn't know.
So she was sneaked in there.
Yeah.
Very good. Twin Swag's asking, what aspect of working on Modern Combat did you find the most rewarding?
The most rewarding. I mean, I'm a programmer. I like solving problems. We did a lot of problem solving. That's always what I think is rewarding, and it was rewarding to play as a team, and build this as a team. And I really enjoyed all the game testing we did as well, because we played this game over and over and over and over again through 3 years of development to be able to make it as good as possible. And it was a special thing to sit in one room and play it with like 20 other people.
Yeah.
And a special thing when you finally manage to snipe someone and you can hear him throw his controller and
Yeah. I guess we did, because we were all playing online, we didn't ever play beside each other. Because that was the thing for me, like up until that point I was playing games like, GoldenEye and Time Splitters, and they were all, well, mostly I would have played them locally and you would have to like share a little tiny screen. But Modern Combat was the first one where it was like online you were like competing against people all over the world, really. We have a question here from Noah, is asking, did the all vehicle level have all the vehicles and maybe some in development vehicles? So I think he's asking if there was any vehicles that kind of didn't make the cut as such.
I was wondering if we could find some extra vehicles if you managed to rip those out of the demo disc, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really remember. Yeah, I mean, all the vehicles were there, and then when it was just a flat level with all the vehicles stand next to each other, so you could try them and tweak them. And we had this live tweaking tool where you can actually change the parameter of the vehicle while playing the game. So you could change like the springs for the wheels and things like that. I'm not sure if I guess we did cut some vehicles. We cut a lot of things. There were a flyable TIE fighter in the game for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Which we didn't bring into the real game.
Oh, I suppose that was from the Battlefront series. Was that where that came from?
No, we just built it.
Oh, you just done it
I think it was Fredrik Tillander who built that. Just for fun.
Because I think, wasn't the Battlefront games, didn't they run on some sort of Battlefield servers or something? Did I hear that, or maybe I'm making that up?
So not at that time. Then the Star Wars Battlefront game was released in the same era, but it was a different engine. But then after that, the Battlefront games moved to the Frostbite engine.
Yeah.
So DICE built a couple of the Star Wars games with the same engine.
I mean, I remember one of the coolest vehicles for me was the aquatic tank. That
Yeah,
you
that
could
you could
drive it
dry in the
on.
water
Yeah,
on damage.
damage. Yeah. I think damage was the only. It was actually for some reason it was also in Missile Crisis, but there was no body of water to drive it on. But I think damage was the one that yeah, you could drive it in through the water, which was cool. There was like a flooded city that you could drive in around. Definitely a very cool vehicle.
Yeah.
Let's just see if there's any more questions here. Do you remember if there was any gadgets that didn't make the game, or was there ever a plan for like a commander class the way the PC versions had?
I mean, the commander, of course, we discussed that a lot. I don't remember exactly why we didn't implement that. I think it was like one of those things that we didn't really think fitted into this game because of the like more the console focus and the more fast-paced gameplay and so on. But yeah, we discussed it. We didn't do it. I guess partly because we didn't have time as well.
The game did have like the ability to do an airstrike, so I think that was kind of like the commander ability really, but like it was just open to anyone, whoever like it was. There was always a big fight to get to the airstrike because it was like a couple of guaranteed kills really. It was a good gameplay dynamic because I think it was like every 3 minutes. What I would have found in Conquest was people would leave if they were defending a flag, they would leave their flag to go and get the airstrike, and while they were doing that, you may have the ability to like steal a flag back off them. But I used to play with a guy who had like a stopwatch, and he knew exactly like how many. I think it was like 3 minutes, say. So after the airstrike would drop, he would like press his stopwatch, and then he would just play on. Then his stopwatch would go off 3 minutes later, and then he would like run to the thing. So he always knew when it was coming, sort of thing.
We should have a bit of random time there. If they release the service, I can fix that time for you and make it random. Actually, the gameplay is all in Python scripts outside of the executable, so you could change things like that. If you had the server code, and you could change the game modes as well. If you don't like Conquest and Capture the Flag, you could build that as well.
It's surprising to me that the game, as old as it is, was using Python, but it was also using like Maya to do all the I think it was like the rigging and possibly the modeling, because like Maya's still being used. Like there's nothing really there's not a lot changed in that way. So like in theory, like if you had the original files, like it would be fairly easy to work with them again, because all of that software and logic's all still being used really. What's your thoughts on how like modern shooting games, it's all now like loot crates and kind of all these unlocks and DLCs and stuff like that? Like what, like I always find it much better whenever things were more balanced, but like now it feels like it's all about what unlocks you have and things like that. Like do you ever think much about that and how different it is back on the whenever you were making Modern Combat?
I haven't thought that much about it, but I mean that thing started to happen when I was still at DICE, but I haven't played that much since then. Maybe one of the things that triggered this was the success of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Which showed that you could just keep on making money from the players.
Yeah.
The subscription mode, if you kept giving them more things and kept just let the players make progress. And I think a problem in Battlefield Modern Combat is that it's hard to make progress. It's a difficult game in multiplayer, especially if you're new to it, because you just throw into the game and you have everything at once, and everyone is better than you when you start playing. It's a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Uh, and I
Well,
think just giving it at the time is can in some ways be a good way of introducing you to the game. But there's always, I mean, the gameplay balance is always a problem as well.
that was a nice thing about Modern Combat also, where it was like there was 3 tiers of server. There was like a
Yeah,
beginner's server, and then there was like a mid-level, and then there was like
yeah.
a high ranks. And depending on your points per hour, I think it was, and also your current rank at that time.
It actually depended on your rank, and that was a bad decision because the rank was a bad mix-up of grinding and skill.
Yeah,
So some for you to be able to climb in rank, you had to do a lot of things in parallel. You had to have a high skill, which was just how good you were at ending up high on the scoreboard, and you had to have a higher kill death ratio. But you also had to take all those weird medals, which some of them were just grinding medals, and some were enforcing you to play in weird ways.
yeah,
So it was a bit
yeah,
odd. I think we should have tried to keep skill and grinding apart and base the ranking purely on skill levels, and then use the grinding as a way to reward you, even if you weren't that good, so you could feel that you could climb some ladder if you were just playing longer.
yeah. It
And
was.
that's actually something we did much more like that in Medal of Honor. So for me, Medal of Honor was like the follow-up to Modern Combat, where we did all the things that we wanted to do in Modern Combat. Medal of Honor is also like this more fast-paced game. It has a better implementation of the skill and ranking system that we wanted for Modern Combat and so on. So I think if you miss Modern Combat, you should try Medal of Honor from 2010 if it's still playable online. But I think it is.
It was the one that was released sort of during. I think it was like. So you were working on it while Bad Company was being worked on. Is that right?
Well, the Medal of Honor was released 2010,
Yeah.
so that was
I
like
actually have a timeline somewhere. I think.
uh,
Let's see.
close to Bad Company 2 release.
I do have a timeline because I had a little timeline for when the game shut down. Um, so that was so Battlefield 2 was released in 2005 on both PlayStation and Xbox, and then 2006 for the 360.
Yeah.
And then if we move up to the second slide, I don't actually have Medal of Honor on this.
But you can see
Yeah,
that
2010 was so it was just after Bad Company 2 then. Yeah, I do remember there was something about if you pre-ordered Medal of Honor, you got to play the beta for Bad Company, or maybe it was like you got to play the beta for Battlefield 3 maybe or something.
yeah,
I think that was it. Yeah, you got early access to it essentially.
yeah.
Yeah, I just remember because I just remember playing Battlefield Bad Company 2 and hearing about Medal of Honor coming out and how it would have the beta for Battlefield 3.
Oh. And the fun fact about Medal of Honor is that it was developed the same way with two different teams in two different studios making the single player and multiplayer game from
Right.
like 2 games in one day. So it
There's
was kind
some
of similar in
parallels
that
there.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't actually get to play that game, but I'm gonna definitely have a look for it now. Check it out. So, is there any? Someone's asking if there was ever talks of like a direct sequel to Battlefield 2 Modern Combat.
I mean, the Bad Company game was a much bigger financial success, so it made more sense to make a sequel to that.
Yeah,
And then once we actually had realized that when everyone at DICE and EA had realized that it was possible to make proper multiplayer games on console, then it made more sense to make the Battlefield 3 a follow-up to Battlefield 2 rather than a follow-up to Modern Combat. I mean,
right.
Battlefield 2 was a much bigger game as well. So.
Yeah.
And at that point, when Battlefield 3 was released, then we were early in the console cycles, which meant that the consoles and PC were more similar, which made it possible to make the same game on both console and PC.
Yeah.
Which was not possible when we did Mortal Kombat.
I suppose, yeah, that was the big difference with Battlefield 3, where it was like essentially both games played at least similarly, like, whereas Modern Combat is radically different to the PC version.
Yeah.
It's funny because people often, when you talk to them, you know, I'll say to them like, oh, I used to play Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I played that too. I played that on PC, and you're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't play on PC, like. So yeah, they're very, very different games. But look,
Exactly.
I think I know I've taken up a lot of your time. There's one more question that's just came in. Let's just see, what's it? I remember there was talks about PlayStation Portable port to Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. Was it ever in a playable state? That's a good question, actually, because that was brought up, I think, in
Never
Discord.
saw a playable state. I know they started on it. I don't think it got playable.
Didn't get too far. Was it actually going to be like an online game, or just like, was it going to be just like the
I don't know.
single player maybe? Don't know. Yeah. Because I know the PSP did
I'm
have
not
like
sure.
some online
I don't
games.
think it had online game mode. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, there were some, because I think like Metal Gear Portable was like PSP, or no, Peace Walker, I think it was called. Actually, I know a lot of people played it online.
Yeah.
So, well, look, I really appreciate you coming on and asking questions. I think we should probably wrap up because I know it's getting late. But I'd love to have you back on sometime, especially if we get some news from DICE. We could go on and do a bit of a stream and get some reactions, see what the community think, if we get something good. But yeah, maybe we'll chat again sometime. So
Yeah, I'll be happy to come back, and if I hear something from DICE, you will be the first to know.
Okay. Also, anyone that's watching, maybe I'm gonna edit this video because I know we had some problems at the start, and I'll re-upload this. So if anyone has any questions, I'm sure you could go on to the Discord and post on there, because I know, Måns, you're quite active on there and you keep up to date with any questions, which is great. So if anyone has any other questions they didn't get an opportunity to ask live, then just join the Discord group and you can contact Måns through there. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and hopefully chat to you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
And thanks everyone who was listening.
Yeah. See you later, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.